When the closest point of reference we have is f***ing Batman and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's why it's so wild, right? And it's just an interesting story. So far away, Lucas, and lovely audience at home, same question. Do you remember The Dark Knight?
I mean, I remember the movie The Dark Knight, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember that part in it where, like, a dude pulls a gun on Harvey Dent?
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah? Do you know that's actually happened before?
And did they get away with it?
Well, let's talk about that now, shall we?
If you want to kill a public servant, Mr. Maroney, I recommend you buy American.
While I'd hope everybody out there watching this will never need this advice, if you happen to find yourself in court and you want to convince everybody there that you are not a crazy, unhinged arsehole, I would advise you refrain from pulling out a gun and threatening to shoot someone right there in the courtroom. Right? That's good advice, right?
I would hope that that's advice that doesn't need to be stated, but I guess if you didn't know, it is pretty good advice. Yeah,
and if you're gonna get into an argument with someone on the stand, it's also advised not to threaten to kill them.
Permission to treat the witness as hostile.
Granted.
Hostile? I see you hostile!
Like, that's literally a Simpsons joke. I'm going to be putting the clip in of, Mayor Quimby's nephew on the stand, where it's, like, the absolute worst, possible thing you could do when you're, being questioned of, well, you're not a violent person, are you? No. And you certainly wouldn't, fly off the handle over the pronunciation of, a word like chowder. That's chowder! I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you, especially the members of the jury! You just don't do that.
I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you! Especially those of you in the jury!
He's clearly guilty.
Wow, that didn't go well.
Again, this has all happened before.
Specifically over the word chowder.
Not over the word chowder, but there has been a case where someone out there pulled a gun and also threatened to kill someone on the stand on multiple different occasions.
Where the fuck do you think that's going to get you?
Well, let's find out, Lucas, shall we? While we talk about the story of Sarah Althea Hill.
Well, Bart, because of you, a horrible yet innocent person is going to jail.
So far away, Lucas, I'm going to assume the name Sarah Althea Hill means very little to you.
Yeah. I do not know who this person is. I don't think I've ever heard the name at all.
I imagine it's the same for the audience watching at home. Otherwise, why would you click on this video if you knew the story? Unless you just want to comment below, I already knew this story. You missed out a detail. But you've not heard the entire story yet, so let's see if I missed out any details, shall we? So, her story of just batshit insane court shenanigans began in 1880. And it happened when she started having an affair with a guy called, I have his name here, William Sharon. And he was a senator.
And is this allegedly, or is 1880 enough where we can probably hope that Sarah's not going to come back from the grave?
Well, there was a whole court case
sue us?
where this was argued, right? And the senator was so impressed with Miss Althea Hill's sexual kung fu that he offered her a monthly stipend of $500 to be his mistress.
I mean, God,
that's in 1880s money.
That's a lot of money. That would have been some, as you say, sexual kung fu.
Yeah, I'll put a figure on screen now of how much that would be in $20-25, but that's a lot of money.
What are you doing? Huel. Hey, quit screwing around. We are here to do a job.
And it was alleged in a later court case by Sarah Hill that during one of these many sweaty sexual liaisons, the senator asked her to marry him. But he asked her to marry him in secret so that the press wouldn't, get wind of a story and just, destroy his reputation. Because if you're not already weirded out by this story, I should point out that at the time, the senator was 60, Sarah Hill was 30.
Okay. Not as low a number as I was, going to be disgusted by.
Those numbers could have been a lot worse. But nonetheless, the senator was worried that his reputation would be damaged if his constituents knew that he was paying a woman half his age $500 a month to bang him on command. And a couple of years later, Sarah Hill got kind of annoyed. She said, you know what? I'm going to take the senator to court. I want to divorce him. We married in secret, but we're going to get divorced in public. And I want, as his wife, half of his shit when that divorce goes through.
Yeah, I mean... The assumption would be that if they married in secret, there's no legal documents being signed either, right?
And you're right there, Lucas. And as a result, you think that just this would have been thrown out of court instantly. But no, this began a decade-long legal battle where, like, Sarah Hill just got increasingly more just batshit insane on the stand. And during the court case, like, the senator was, like, having none of it. And he accused, like, Sarah Hill of, like, you know, using her womanly wiles to lure him in, calling himself an old fish who was lured in by some admittedly very attractive bait.
You're dating a prostitute?
Not for long. I'm gonna make that whore my wife.
And while the senator did admit to paying Sarah $500 a month to make herself available whenever he required, he outright denied that he'd married her. And as a result, she wasn't entitled to any of his money. And here's the thing, Lucas, right? What do you think would be the worst possible defense for a man to offer in this scenario?
Ooh, right.
Because, like, this story is wild. And we're just getting started.
I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you!
Yeah, that's the thing. I can't think of, like, the worst things, but maybe, like, just claiming that she was a prostitute and nothing more, something along those lines.
No. So when, like, the court asked him, okay, so you were paying this woman $500 a month to be your mistress. Why should we believe that you didn't marry her in secret, as she claims? Well, if I'd have married her, it would have upset my other mistress. And, like, you've got to admit, that's a pretty ballsy play, right?
It's selling yourself down the river, but my question more is admitting that way worse than admitting that you married someone half your age?
Well, you didn't want to give away half his money, right? And at that point,
I mean, like, originally before they got divorced, right?
Well, that's the thing, they were never married, Lucas.
Well, of course not, yeah. I mean, it is a he said, she said at this point,
it
right?
It was, yeah. But I just, like, what a balls-out defence, right? Of, like, well, my reputation's already in the shitter, I might as well fucking, like, try and save what I can of my money. And that was his defence of, like, well, I wouldn't have married her because my other mistresses would have been upset. And this, like, was dragged through the courts for many, many years until 1892 when they finally agreed that the senator had not married Sarah Althea Hill, and as a result, she was entitled to none of his money. And that, no doubt, came of a great relief to the senator because he spent the last 7 years being dead.
I was wondering when you said it was over a decade, like, oh, okay, this guy was already in his 60s and it's the 1800s.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Lucas, because he died, his son had to continue doing the court case and sit opposite a woman who would frequently describe his dad's balls in explicit detail.
And then claim that she deserves no assets for that.
Yeah. And after the court case did not end in Sarah Hill's favour, she understandably was a bit annoyed, but she began another romance with her own lawyer, a slavery-endorsing piece of shit called David Terry. And over the next few years, they just became a massive pain in the ass of the American legal system by just continually acting like dipshits. So would you like some examples, Lucas?
Yeah, I would, because I'm confused at how you can just act like dipshits, quote unquote, to piss off the court so much.
So they repeatedly found themselves in court suing anyone and everyone that they could, like, you know, accuse of anything. And they would threaten anybody who disagreed with them, including the jury, other lawyers, and the judges presiding over their cases. And just pro tip, don't do that.
No, not the best idea.
And I mentioned at the start, Lucas, do you remember, like, in Dark Knight, where just the dude pulls a fucking gun on, like, Harvey Dent?
Obviously, it's not in a court case, it's just in court, but you're still in the legal building. Like, of all places to commit crimes, the building of law is probably not the one to do it.
It's the thing, right? If you're being accused of a crime, and your response is to commit another crime, in the middle of being, like, say, well, I'm not a criminal, prove it. How dare you accuse me of being a criminal? Pulls out a fucking gun.
But nobody has no answers. And so I pull out my gun. Tell me what Tom Cruise in the closet or else I'm gonna shoot someone.
That sounds stupid. That's what Sarah did. Because when a lawyer was, like, grilling her on the stand and, like, she felt insulted by what he'd said, because she wasn't a dirty criminal, and in response to this, Sarah pulled out a gun and pointed it in the face of the lawyer. I'm surprised even managed to make it there. And legends say that you were able to find out where that lawyer lived because just the drag marks of his balls on his way to court, because when he had a gun pointed in his face, he didn't quite Harvey Dent it and, like, disarm her and punch her and knock her out and say, buy American next time. He just said, what are you going to do? Shoot me?
I mean, I don't really have a response. Like, fair fucking play.
Yeah. Like I said, just that lawyer, absolute cast iron nads. But we're not done, because she didn't shoot, but she was held in contempt of court, which is wont to happen when you pull a gun out when you're on the stand and threaten to shoot someone in the middle of court.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Is when does it constitute an actual crime? Because having the gun on your person, presumably being in America, this, depending on the state and the time, might not be an actual crime to have the gun on you.
That's literally a South Park joke, right, with Randy, of like, I thought this was America. It's like, but you're acting like a dipshit, Randy. Other people want to enjoy... No, I thought this was America. It's like, other people are entitled to enjoy this space as much as you. Stop acting like, I thought this was America. It's like, God damn it.
Come on, let's go! I'm right here! Motherfucker! Go! What you got? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was in America. I'm sorry.
Right? It's like people go into like fucking Subway with a gun. It's like, well, there's no rule about walking in with a gun. It's like, but it's Subway. Do you need a gun in Subway? Are you that worried they're going to mess up your order? Is your dick that small?
God. As is the case with like The Simpsons and South Park, Always Sunny's been going on so long that I can always pull a clip, and it's like, there is a scene where Charlie walks into a lawyer's office and is like, you've disrespected me, I demand a duel. And he's like, okay, I've got my gun right here, like, meet tomorrow at noon. Cool.
And Charlie immediately tries to back off, right? And here's the thing, Lucas. Do you think was that unrealistic to you?
Make this quick. I shan't mince words with you for long. I am challenging you, sir, to a duel.
I accept.
What, that he just pulled out a gun?
No, like, challenging the person questioning your honour to a fight in court, or like, charging a lawyer. Because it doesn't matter what you say, Lucas, because it fucking happened. Because on another occasion with another lawyer, Sarah Hill was asked an innocent question on the stand, and she did not respond well to his question, and she slapped the lawyer across the face for daring to insult her.
That's like, pulling out a gun, I don't know the legality of just threatening with a gun, but slapping someone could be considered assault straight away.
Well, speaking of threatening, Lucas, on another occasion, she threatened to punch the judge.
Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how far, like,
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure if I was in court and I pointed at the judge and went, I'm going to punch you in the fucking face, there's something the judge can do to stop that, right? Surely?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if it's technically a crime. However, I do know it's a fucking terrible idea.
That's the thing. Even if it's not a crime, maybe there is like some weird legal like quirk of being in a courtroom in how like things are classified as being crimes. But as I said, it's certainly a bad idea and it's a bad look, right?
Yeah. Your Honor, I would like to request a sidebar.
Granted.
There's always stuff floating around on the internet, right, about how you can technically get away with a crime if you do it in a certain location or in a certain way. But as you said, it's still just a really, really bad idea when you're there on the stand trying to talk to your own character and your response to a question is pulling out a gun and pointing it in someone's face and threatening to kill them.
Yeah, because I know, like, shooting the person would be a crime, but it's pulling the gun on them, not. But either way, yeah, not a good exact look of your character when you're sat in front of, like, your peers and potentially a jury.
Yeah, but remember, Lucas, right? She started a romance with her lawyer from the previous case, and she eventually married that guy. So you'd think, surely her husband, a lawyer, would advise her, maybe don't do that. Like, so all I picture is just like him, just like, it's like Always Sunny, right? Just that lawyer on that show just gives really matter-of-fact advice, like, don't do this, it's stupid.
And the thing is, this person sounds so unhinged that even if their lawyer husband advised, maybe don't pull a gun on people in court, I don't know that they'd listen to that advice.
What's the thing, Lucas, right? Crazy attracts crazy, because Terry was just as bad. If not worse, because, like, rather than tell his wife, hey, maybe don't threaten to kill people on the stand, that's a bad look, it's not going to help our case, he did the same thing. And on one occasion, when he was in court, he pulled a knife on a US Marshal and punched him in the face.
Like, just... oh, who are these people, Karl?
Yep. So he pulled out a knife and punched a US Marshal when the judge is like, hey, your wife is acting kind of crazy, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering, well, what did his wife do that time? She accused the judge of taking a bribe because he didn't agree with her.
Oh, right, okay.
And Terry was so annoyed at like the judge responding to an accusation of being bribed by asking, like, just can you get this lady out of my court? She's making a mockery of it. That he threatened to kill the judge. Just a pro tip: don't do that.
Yeah. Don't threaten to harm the judge, kill the judge, shout at the judge.
It's just not going to help your case. And it certainly didn't help Terry's case when he was arrested and sent to prison. And while he was in prison, rather than reflecting on his lot in life, like, maybe I should just stop being a crazy piece of shit, he started writing threatening letters and sending them to the judge. Again, pro tip, don't do that. Don't do that, right?
You know what? My one regret in life is not killing that judge while I was in the courtroom.
The name of the album is I Killed Darnell Simmons.
It's a concept album.
A concept? That's a picture of you. A picture of you. And behind you is Darnell Simmons' body.
It reads like parody, right? It's like something that would happen on Always Sunny.
Yeah.
Right? And after getting out of jail for contempt of court, during which time he sent numerous threatening letters to the judge, Terry decides to follow through on his promise of killing the judge when he happened to bump into him while he was eating breakfast. And the judge at this point had a US Marshal walking around with him because there was a crazy person threatening to kill him.
Yeah, and I wonder who would have tried to kill him in this circumstance.
And I should point out as well, the judge was like 80 years old as well. So he was he was threatening to kill like just a doddering 80-year-old man. And Terry walked straight over and punched the judge straight in the face. The US Marshal, in response, pulled out their gun and shot him to death right there in the diner. And when later asked, they said, well, I thought he was going for a gun. I'm going to be honest, even if Terry wasn't going for a gun, I'm pretty sure he would have been alright, right? Because, like, who's your witness for this? The fucking judge presiding over the case.
And I'm sure they wouldn't actually be presiding over that case, but yeah, like...
In my head, though, it's like, well, who'd you call as your first witness? You.
You
were there, and you saw what happened, right?
Can you see Captain Blackadder anywhere in this courtroom? That's him! That's him! That's the man! Ah! No more questions, sir.
Splendid, excellent, first class. The way, come on.
And what's the other information that the US Marshal has to work on at the time? Oh, this person who is assaulting this judge has already sent multiple letters just, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Yeah. Like, you couldn't get a more, like, open shut case, right? If anyone wondering, well, what happened to Sarah Althea Hill? Well, after losing what may have been a second husband or a first husband, depending on whether or not you believe her, I'm going to be honest, I'm inclined not to believe her after hearing all the other stuff she did. But after she lost her husband, she lost her mind. And she was sent to a mental institution.
Not sure she had her mind in the first place, though, Karl.
Like, whatever marble she had left were gone. And she was taken
okay.
to a sanitarium, and she spent the rest of her days believing that she was a wealthy heiress, living out her life in a giant mansion. And that's not really a satisfying or fun conclusion to the story, but life seldom has such satisfying, nice conclusions, right? Just...
No, that's the thing is, like, it's never nice to know that just... Oh, well, what's the conclusion? It's like they suffered from mental illness. That's not the part we want to laugh at.
No. But like, it's more like, and again, we're not making light of any issues that these people may have had. It's just that it's so wild that this happened, because it's literally stuff from films and TV shows.
The only things that we could pull from for reference were satirical comedy shows,
Now,
right?
I can see a member of Always Sunny pulling out a gun in the middle of a court episode. Right? And them not knowing why that's a bad thing.
I'll say there's an episode where a witness on the stand calls their bird to attack the lawyer and eat his eye out.
Yeah. I guess if we...
That's the closest frame of reference Sunny has got.
Yeah.
And it's not that far off.
Like when the closest point of reference we have is fucking Batman and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's why it's so wild, right? And it's just an interesting story. It's deep in the fact fiend archives, because I wrote the original script for this in 2016.
Oh, I thought you were about to say I wrote it in 1890.
I'm immortal. Maybe I'm a vampire, who knows? But yeah.
Are there articles from like more than 10 years ago?
No, yeah, there are ones from 2014.
God, so like it's over the 10-year anniversary of fatfiend.com.
Oh yeah. I've written a lot of work, Lucas, and that's the thing. Like, we'll never run out. Just the archives.
Fatfiend.com started as I'd already like moved out of Sheffield, when I'd already known you for multiple years and seen you working and writing like every time I ever saw you.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's the thing. I'm reading from a script that I wrote 9 years ago. And hopefully the story is like still interesting, because, you know, the story when I wrote it was like over 100 years old. But also, I'm curious, like, is anyone out there actually familiar with this story? Because when I wrote that, I never heard that story. And in the near decade since, I've never heard anybody else talk about it. I've never seen like another YouTube channel talk about this.
This thing is, at the time you were striking while the iron is hot, but 9 years later, Karl, you just...
It's not relevant anymore. Like 100-year-old story, that's one thing, but 109 years old, oh no, we're not talking about it. Yeah, I've never heard anyone else talk about this story, but, you know, I admittedly don't consume every bit of content that gets released, but I like to think that a lot of the stuff we've covered on this channel is stuff that, if it's not entirely unique, is at least being approached from a unique perspective, or there's a bit of information within the story that people are already familiar with that they perhaps didn't know. So that's always been my goal with Fact Fiend content, to tell interesting stories that haven't been covered elsewhere online, or new bits of information about stories that exist online that maybe weren't covered because it requires more research than those other sources would perhaps want to do.
I think that's always the case, is, at least from my perspective, whenever I'm a guest voice on here, is that even if I do know the main crux of the article, you'll have like additional information that I hadn't heard from just, you know, a list of like fact videos or something like that, or like a thing that had popped up on like a QI episode that may have been written before or after your article. I don't know. But just sometimes I might know the main fact, but then there'll be like ancillary material that will be like unknown to myself, and I always learn something new when I appear on these videos, and it's part of the reason why I continue to enjoy doing so to this day.
Yeah, and hopefully, like, you know, that's rings true for the people watching at home as well. Because I've always tried to, like I said, if it's a story people are familiar with, or it's a story that's well known online, I always try to find an extra bit of information.
So, Karl, have you transferred the money for me saying that line yet, or not?
I will do later. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I always like there to be like that Fact Fiend twist. I think we called it in like earlier videos of like, okay, here's like the story. Now you're ready for that twist. And I think with this, like a particular video, the twist is where it's like, okay, she pulled out the gun, but do you want to know it gets worse though? It's like, well, how can it fucking get worse? Well, her husband pulled out a knife.
Let me see what you have. No!
Yeah, it's like you just like that Fact Fiend twist. I always try to add that little twist on most of the things that we cover here on the channel, and we've done like 900 videos so far. So maybe not all of them have been winners, but they've all been written by me. So
stamp of approval right there.
I think I do. I've been literally doing this as a job for 15 years. I think after 15 years and you're not good at something, you should probably fucking give up at doing that thing. Like, that dude should have probably given up being a lawyer, right? Because he was a shit lawyer.
Yeah. I enjoy the information that you bring to me for these, and the idea that you're just like fully leaning into the British side of just self-deprecation of like, well, I wrote them all and some of them are okay. It's like, goddamn it, Karl.
They can't all be
give
winners,
yourself
right?
more credit than that.
Not everyone bats 100, but I'd hope that at the very least everything we've covered is interesting. And I've always presented it with enthusiasm. And that was like one of the other inspirations behind this channel, and why all the content that we make that is based on a script is a script written by myself. Because I, for years, freelance wrote other scripts for other channels. And while I was very proud of those scripts and those videos are very good, I always felt that because the host perhaps isn't as enthused or connected to the material as I was when I researched it, maybe like, you know, like there's a little thing missing, right? But I'm excited to talk about this stuff because it's stuff that I researched and genuinely get excited about sharing cool things that I research and find.
Yeah, and it's similar to the, you know, spin-off channel to Fact Fiend, Wiki Weekends, where we both present and host and make up different videos. We always talk about stuff that we're passionate about, and the crux is that, yeah, we have a wiki page there to help us out with like some facts that we've not necessarily researched or known about, and just make sure that we kind of like fact check ourselves on the fly when we can. But realistically, it's an excuse for us to talk about things that we find interesting and fun.
Because I remember when you approached me with the idea of spinning off Wiki Weekends into its own thing. And do you remember this, Lucas, where like we were in the old office and you were talking to me about it, and I went, "Yeah, that's a good idea, that, mate." And I pulled out my pocket, turned it inside out, and went, "So what are you going to put in this then?" It's like,
I know, fucking nothing. Make a new channel with me.
Just open up my wallet and it's like, oh, it's looking a bit empty here. So is there anything you can put in my pockets?
And I said, well, Karl, maybe if we ever get successful enough, we can sell the fuck out on a different channel.
And the thing as well that I need to point out is that I didn't take the money out of Lucas's wallet. I made him take it out and put it in my pocket. That's way more insulting, right? You don't take the bribe, you make the other person give you the bribe. Make them complicit.
Yeah.